What's up? What's up, y'all? Hope y'all having a good night tonight. So I know y'all see the title of this broadcast, and we gonna get straight into it. So if you didn't know, there was a big gang bust in New York by the NYPD. Some of the artists that were involved were Sleepy Hollow and what is his name? Chef G. So those were two artists that were involved. I never heard their music before, but I feel like we needed to talk about this because we've been seeing a lot of this lately within the past, I say within the past 10 years. Ever since like 2015, with the whole Bobby Smurder case when he got indicted and everything. And from since on, we've been seeing a big pattern of this. So I kind of wanted to talk about it today. So y'all sit back and relax, grab your popcorn. We're gonna go through this one slow because it's a lot of things that I want to talk about tonight regarding this. So one of the first things that I do want to talk about is I know y'all probably heard this name. If you're on TikTok, you probably have heard of this name. If not, you probably haven't. But Black Rock. I want to talk about Black Rock involvement with the music industry. And the reason why I somewhat want to touch on Black Rock is because they're going to be mentioned in a lot of my future streams because they have their hand in a lot of things that's going on. If you didn't know, they own, I think over that I know they own over $1 trillion in assets. So they have shares in a lot of these media companies. A lot. They own a large percentage of a lot of these media companies, um, the record labels, the train companies, with the recent train derailments that keeps happening. So I wanted to bring them up in this topic because they're going to be mentioned in a lot more of my topics as well. So let's get to it. I'm going to share this with y'all. Hold up. So I want to share what I'm talking about. When I do these live streams, one thing about me is I always want to reference where I'm getting my information from. So you know that I'm just not coming out of thin air with this information. So let's get to it. Alrighty. Hold up. Here we go. Okay. See if I can make this wider. Full screen.
They told me to search for connections between private prisons, owned mostly by Vanguard and BlackRock, to the music industry, which is basically all owned by Universal Music Group and Sony Entertainment. And this got dark really fast. So a lot of articles talk about the fact that the CCA has a deal with states that they would buy all of their prisons if they agreed to keep a minimum of 90% occupancy.
So if you haven't heard this before, the CCC, which is the Corrections Corporation of America, they agreed to buy the state's prisons as long as they keep a 90% occupancy rate for privatized prisons. So they have to keep these prisons filled. That's how they make their money.
Occupancy, because that's better for business. And 2 months later, an anonymous email was sent out to various members of the music and publishing industries giving an account of a secret meeting where it was determined that hip hop music would be manipulated to drive up privatized prisons' profits.
So you heard that. I know y'all heard about They say it's a conspiracy theory, but this is actually true about the secret meeting that they had in the early 90s to push an agenda through hip hop that will cause these prisons to fill. And as you can see, it's working. The whole agenda that they had is working. In the early 90s, there was a big wave of gangster rap, and after the Tupac and Biggie death, it kind of somewhat died down. And then I say probably in the late 2000s, you had the trap music and everything, but it did not quite hit like the drill music did in the 2010s, the early 2010s. So I say around by like 2011, 2012, when Chief Keef and the whole drill came out, that basically set a stone for the new era of gangster rap. Because that's basically all it is. It's just gangster rap repackaged. If you think about West Coast gangster rap, how big it hit in the early 90s, drill had that similar effect in a way. So let's continue.
We will get to that letter in a minute. But first, can we take a minute to appreciate this graph? This is the US state and federal prison population from 1925 till the 2000s.
So 1925 to 2014. Y'all seen how much that rose? So not only is they making money from the stocks, from prison stocks, because there is a more of a demand for it. So the value of these stocks is going to continue to go up, but also you're going to have a basically new slave population, low wage labor. So let's continue.
In that time, since the 80s, life sentences have increased by 470%, and life without parole has increased by 394%. The more red, the more imprisonment. Part two, we're going to go looking for that anonymous letter. A commenter that asked me.
Okay. So let me stop sharing. So you heard what he said. He said since the 80s, life sentences increased by a drastic amount, by over 400% since the 80s. Now, what happened during the 80s? During the 80s, you had the crack epidemic. You had the war on drugs. And then what happened right after that? You had all these indictments, these RICOs, you had mass incarceration. That's what happened shortly after the 80s. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit more later and how it directly corresponds with the hip hop industry today. But I want to touch on this secret meeting. So give me a second. Let me look up the video. It's a few videos I kind of want to share with y'all. 1 second. Y'all bear with me. Okay, so basically, what I'm gonna show y'all is an interview with Crazy Bone. And basically he's talking about this secret meeting in hip hop that happened in the early 90s that the dude on TikTok was just talking about, on how they're going to use hip hop to push an agenda that will mind control the masses, especially the black community, to push them to lead to mass incarceration. So let me share this with y'all. Fair use, fair use.
The secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation.
Damn.
So it says, hello. After more than 20 years, I finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991, which I
Now he said destroyed a generation, but it's not just one generation getting destroyed by this. It's multiple generations getting destroyed by this. Because as you can see, it is 2023, and the same thing is going on today as it was 30 years ago. 1991 was over 30 years ago, and as you can see, they're using the same tactics, and it's still working till this day.
believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music and ultimately American society. I have struggled for a long time weighing the pros and cons of making my story public, as I was reluctant to implicate the individuals who were present that day. So I've simply decided to leave out the names and all the details that may risk my personal well-being and that of those who were, like me, dragged into something they weren't ready for.
Damn.
Hold on, let me
So we gonna tell a story.
we gonna tell the story. We ain't scared.
You know what I'm saying? What they gonna do?
They after us, not just playing.
Look, that black van.
So look, so he says between the late 80s and early 90s, I was what you may call a decision maker.
So this was the late 80s, early 90s. So at the time, this was when the crack epidemic was popping off, the peak of gang banging, um, the peak of gangster rap. You had NWA, you had your at that time you had the Dr. Dre's. This was like a few years before Death Row started to kick off.
With one of the more established companies in the music industry. I came to Europe in the early 80s and quickly established myself in the business. The industry was different back then, since technology and media weren't accessible to people like they are today. The industry had more control over the public and had the means to influence them any way it wanted.
Right.
This may explain why in early 1991, I was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group of business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Rap music's new direction.
Yeah.
Little did I know we would be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices ever seen.
Okay. So before this even popped off, you remember at one point there was a whole big conscious movement in hip hop. There was this big conscious movement, Black Pride, um, love yourself as a black person. It was huge. Also the messages were different. We talking about doing positive things in the community. We talk about how drugs are bad. Before this, it was a lot more positive messages in hip hop. But this is where it took a turn for the worse.
Crazy.
So this was the meeting. The meeting was held at a private residence on the outskirts of Los Angeles. I remember about 25 to 30 people were being there.
Right.
Most of them familiar faces. Speaking of those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private meeting to discuss the future of hip hop.
So another thing is, back at that time, they did not think rap was going to last that long. They thought as hip hop and rap, they thought of it as a fad, to be honest. You know, us, born in the 90s or later, rap has always been around, since rap and hip hop been around since we've been alive. So we couldn't imagine a world like that, to where rap wasn't the mainstream music at that time. Like, rap wasn't listened to globally like it is today. So us, in the younger age group, we can't really fathom that, because ever since we've been alive, we always known it's been hip hop. It's been rap ever since we've been living. The older generations, they remember when hip hop first started, and a lot of people never cared for it. A lot of the older generations, I'm talking about like the baby boomer age and things like that, they looked at it like this was never going to last. This is a little fad or whatever. It's not going to last that long. It's going to go away in a few years. Kind of like how like disco was. Disco, it was a short span with disco. I say like disco ended in the late 70s, when they ended up smashing all those disco records and things like that. So they looked at hip hop like that, like it was gonna be short lived. They did not expect it to be on a global scale like it is today. And it's 50 years later, 40 years later. I think it was just like the 50th anniversary of hip hop. But it went back even further than that, to be honest, because we was already practicing some forms of hip hop before then, but it wasn't fully formed all the way like it was in the early 90s. So they was thinking this gonna be short lived, it's gonna be a fad. Like, why are we even having a meeting like this?
Talk to him.
Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they didn't seem to be from our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign the confidentiality agreement, preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting.
So they had to sign a confidentiality agreement, basically saying, hey, you can't talk about this meeting. So that's why he had to, the person who exposed this had to come out like in private and expose it. Like, he had to hide his identity when he did expose this.
Needless to say, this intrigued, in some cases, disturbed many of us. The agreement was only a page long, but very clear on matters and consequences, which stated that violating the terms would result in job termination immediately. We asked several people what this meeting was about and the reason for such secrecy, but could not find anyone who had the answers for us. A few people refused to sign and walked out. Nobody stopped them. I was tempted to follow, but curiosity got the best of me.
That's right.
A man who was part of the unfamiliar group collected all the agreements from us. So now it's going to get to the good part, because the meeting about to start.
Talk to him, Jake.
It says, quickly after the meeting began, hold on 1 second.
Get your popcorn, y'all.
Popcorn, get your pistol. No,
For real though.
Quickly after this meeting began, one of the industry colleagues, who shall remain nameless like everybody else, thanked us for attending. He then gave the floor to a man who only introduced himself by first name and gave no other details about his personal background. I think he was the owner of the residence, but that was never confirmed. He briefly praised all of us for the success we had achieved in our industries and congratulated us for being selected as part of this small group of decision makers. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable in the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry, which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement.
Damn.
He explained that the companies we worked for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments.
Okay, so these investors, they had already ahead of time invested billions of dollars into private prisons. So as you can see, they invested all this money. They said, hey, they told the states that you have to keep these private prisons 90% 90% filled to capacity. And basically they was telling these people that were in this meeting, they were saying, hey, you're going to play a big role in this. Let's continue.
Then he says, I remember many of us in the group immediately looking at each other in awe and confusion. At the same time, I didn't know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with music. We were told that.
So at this time, they didn't even know what a private prison was. The prison population wasn't they didn't have as many prisons built as they do now. When I was going to school, and I went to public school in St. Louis, and they used to always tell us, they're building prisons for you, right? Every time we would act up or something, they used to always tell us they building prisons for y'all right now. That goes into the whole elementary to prison pipeline thing. They build prisons off of students' test scores. So if a certain public school has low testing scores, like as far as like they they all have like state tests. I think for like elementary, it's like the benchmark tests and things like that. They used to tell us, even the teachers used to tell us, they're building prisons for y'all. We used to hear that a lot. And they really was building prisons just for us because they expected us to fail. Elementary is made and set to set us up for prison. A lot of these public schools that's inside these inner cities, they're set up to get that next generation sent to prison, basically. And it's called the elementary to prison pipeline. Take a look at that. But they build prisons off of test scores.
These prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates.
Mm-hmm.
The more inmates, the more the government would pay these prisons.
Mm-hmm.
So the more inmates, the more money these prisons get. And guess what's going to drive these people to do crimes to end up in these prisons?
Hmm.
It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple of people asked what this had to do with us. At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened.
Hold up, give me 1 second, y'all. My light done went out. I don't know what just happened. Give me 1 second, y'all. All right, sorry about that.
The meeting took the floor again and answered our questions. He told us that since our employees had become solid investors in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Our job would be to help make this happen by making music which promote criminal behavior.
You heard that? Making music that promotes criminal behavior. That promotes selling drugs. That promotes murder. That promotes drug use. That promotes sexual deviancy. And they're going to use this music to get the next generations of black people in prison so they can make a profit off of it.
Rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies. And as employees, we also be able to buy stocks in these prisons.
So they was giving them opportunities to buy stocks and everything. But if you ask, especially a lot of these old school rappers, a lot of the rappers that was coming up in the 90s or whatever, at a point in time, they started off as gangster rappers, and then they wanted to switch over and, say they found religion, and they didn't want to do that type of music anymore. The record labels would straight up tell them, like, this ain't gangster enough. You ain't talking about killing enough. You ain't talking about murder, gang banging, and selling drugs enough. We need more of that. That's what the record labels would straight up tell them. And you want to know why they told them that? It's because of this. That's how they make their money. They need to keep the prison population filled. So they use a lot of these gangster rappers to fill prisons, to influence the masses. Why do you think they're put on such a pedestal in the black community as our influencers, as our leaders? Why do you think they promote ratchet culture to us? They promote gangster music to us. They promote criminals to us, crime life. They make money off of it, y'all. And the thing is, it's definitely working. Because even on a local level, I see local rap artists getting indicted. That's not even known like that. YouTube artists getting indicted over this. The music causing these young dudes to crash out because they so influenced by it that they feel like they gotta live that life. Um, Ja Morant, when he's in the car flashing that gun, that man is just hypnotized by that music. The music is playing a big part of this. I'm not gonna say that the music started it, but it definitely is playing a big part of this.
Immediately, silence came over the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember looking around to make sure I wasn't dreaming and saw half of the people with dropped jaws. My daze was interrupted when someone shouted, "Is this a fucking joke?" At this point, things became chaotic.
Right.
Two of the men who were part of the unfamiliar group grabbed the man who shouted and attempted to remove him from the house. A few of us, myself included, tried to intervene. One of them pulled out a gun, and we all backed off. They said,
So this got dangerous, y'all. And these people in this meeting that nobody knew, they was probably like some high level people, y'all. So this, quick things quickly escalated with this, y'all.
separated us from the crowd, and all four of us was escorted outside. My industry colleague, who opened up the meeting earlier, hurried out to meet us and reminded us that we had signed an agreement and would suffer the consequences of speaking out about this publicly, or even those who attended the meeting.
Damn.
I asked him, why was he involved with something so corrupt? And he replied, it's bigger than the music business and nothing we can do. No, it's bigger than the music business and nothing we want to challenge without risking consequences. We all protested as we walked back into the house. I remember word for word the last thing he said. It's out of my hands now. Just remember you signed an agreement. He then closed the door behind him. The men rushed us to our car and actually waited until we drove off the property.
Damn.
So this meeting, bro.
Now that's a lot for a meeting right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know.
So yeah. You see it right here. He said it's bigger than the music industry, which it is. It's way bigger than the music industry. As you can see, this has been a plot and plan all along. And it affects black people in multiple ways. First of all, it increased the prison population because it influenced the black youth to commit heinous crimes, murders, going to drug dealing, or do drugs and become a drug addict, which will then increase the prison populations. That's just the first part. The next part is it destroys families. Because when most of the black man is incarcerated, that leaves single mothers. And you want to know the statistics of single of children that go to prison with single mothers? Let's take a look at that. And I'm doing this like off the dome. Well, you know what? We're going to do that after we finish this video. But yeah, children raised under single mothers are more likely to go to prison. So you got another generation of boys raised by single mothers. They are already more likely to go to prison. Then on top of that, they don't maybe the mother is working crazy shifts and these kids are at home by themselves. Guess what's raising them? the music. And guess what? It's a vicious cycle. So it didn't just destroy one generation, it destroyed multiple generations of black people, this type of music there. And yes, I indulge. I mean, I like some of the gangster rap. I like the old school gangster rap. I like some of the new drill artists. Um, but me personally, I like a variety of different types of music. I just don't listen to that music by itself. And I know the difference between music, entertainment, and reality. That's the thing with me. But a lot of these kids, they really let this get to their head. They really look up to these rap artists. This is what's really raising a lot of these kids is this music. And they want to portray that image and be like that. And I've seen many young men crash out with this music.
And this person later on, he said, this person actually ended up leaving the music industry after this happened. With a few years after this, he ended up leaving the music industry.
Okay.
And he said he just over the years he just felt guilty because he said as he sat back and he watched these plans come to a reality
Over 2 decades.
he sat back and was like, wow, they really pulled it off.
Yeah.
They really pulled this off. He was like,
I mean, and he should feel guilty, to be honest, because he played a role in it. He was in this meeting and he had to tell somebody because he felt guilty about it. He seen how everything played out. He seen how this music influenced the youth and what we call the culture now. And that's just not all our culture. We have positive things about our culture as well, but this is the negative part that influenced us and caused mass incarceration. It destroyed families. And he had to clear his conscience in some way, so I can see why he came out and did what he did.
they were told not to sign any more political rappers, any more rappers that had messages in their
No
music.
positivity.
It was all to be gangster rap music that they.
So no more political rappers, no more conscious rappers, no more positive rappers talking about doing positive things, just gangster rappers. And that's what saturates our radio till this day. That's what our radios is saturated with.
promoted and put out.
So if you wonder where
And this
Brand
was
Nubians
before
went,
us.
if you wonder where Brand Nubians went, where Pro Righteous Teachers went, where Public Enemy went, where KRS-One went, and all sorts of groups like that was talking,
Yeah.
even Queen Latifah and Moni Love and those, you know what I'm saying?
Everybody.
It's a back door.
Yeah, anything that was harmless, fun rap, anything that had a message in it had to go.
Yeah, that's
You know
why
what I'm
if you
saying?
even notice though, now
And we talk about that all the time.
even be brief with it, you know what I'm saying? Those charms that came out like maybe in 1988, 89, the African charms, those they lasted for about 2 years and they disappeared real quick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Quickly.
definitely. Now, after reading all this, it actually made me feel a few different ways. The first emotion I felt was shocked, because I was definitely taken back by this, just knowing the level of evil that's involved by even thinking of a plan like this. You know what I'm
Right.
So yeah, these people are demonic. These people are evil, they're wicked. And they just use these rappers as puppets to influence the masses. And set out their agendas that they're trying to put out. That's what they call it, making a deal with the devil. Because I mean, basically, that's what you're doing. When you're agreeing to put out murderous music, talking about killing your own people, doing drugs, destruction, and you're hypnotizing the youth, that's the devil's work. And yes, you're going to be compensated well for that. They'll compensate you for that if they're not messing you over. But hey, it's the devil's work.
The second emotion I felt was anger. Anger because it's not enough for them to exploit our culture and make all the money off of it.
Mhm.
Because let's keep it real, the industry has never been favorable towards the artists. Never. But they're going to go beyond the artists.
Right, you heard them. The industry has never been favorable for the artist, so they'll take all your publishing, take all your masters, and exploit you, leave you with nothing, leave you high and dry at the end. That's what a lot of record labels do. They end up raping these artists, and these artists end up their slaves. And like he said, yes, they exploit our people. They exploit our talents, and we don't even make the money off of it. We're not even the owners of it. We're not even controlling what's going on. They're making all the money off of our talents. Same thing with the NFL, the NBA. Same thing with sports. Yes, they may pay them good for while it's last, but we're the talent. We make all the money. They're coming to see us, and all they do is exploit it. They give us pocket change compared to what they're making off of it.
To get the artist to influence and lure in the consumer, which they knew at the time were mainly minorities.
Yep.
In other words, keep promoting gangster rap so that the youngsters will be influenced by them, which in turn will incite them to want to act like them. And it's a very good chance they'll end up in their prison.
Yeah.
So they're getting.
And this is very true. I see it till this day. I still see it, even like I said, even on the local level, the local artists crashing out, doing time in prison. Young dudes play ball in high school. Wasn't even like that in high school, but because of this music, because they want to portray an image, because they want to be that dude, they ended up crashing out, and they in prison today. It's working till this day, and it's 2023, y'all. Ain't nothing changed except for the technology. A lot of these rappers are self-snitching on themselves now, so it's a lot easier to indict these rappers because of all this technology. Because they want the clout. They want to be that dude. They want to flash guns. There was a high-speed chase that ended up killing a group of men because they was flashing guns on live, and the police ended up chasing them, and they crashed out and ended up crashing the whip, and they all ended up dying. Local rapper, and I see this with local rappers, well-known rappers getting indicted because they telling what they do in their songs, and people be loving that too. Tell them what they do in the songs, telling how they murder people. flashing guns on social media, telling what they gonna do on social media. You know what you post on social media always stays on social media. They don't have to build no case on you for real. Y'all doing all the work for them because it's even worse now because we have social media and y'all love the clout. Y'all love the attention. And that's what gets y'all hot fast. That's what gets y'all booming. Talking about that type of stuff. That's what our culture likes. That's what's presented. That's what's propped up.
Getting paid twice. They're getting paid from the artists they signing, and then they're getting paid from the people that these artists influence that goes to prison trying to be like these.
So they getting paid from the artists and the prisons, the private prisons. So it's a win-win for them. And all they had to do is keep the cycle going. And they can stay eating.
Artists.
Yeah.
So they making a killing.
A killing.
They're using the music business to promote their private prison business.
My man is right there talking that right. 1988, a man named Tom Beasley, man. That's the co-founder of the corrections the corrections for Corporation of America. It's the CCA. You know what I'm saying? Excuse my French. I'm reading this thing right there real quick. It's the CCA. So in 1988, he founded that, and this is in straight concert with the same thing. So it's like the music business. You do what you do on your side. And right over here with the correction facilities, we're going to do on this side because, and now in 1970, there was 500 prisons. You know what I'm saying? Only 500 prisons in the United States.
So in 1970, there were only 500 prisons in the United States.
To this day, there's 1,700 prisons right now. That means big business. I'm talking about.
So it's 1,700 right now. And this is an old interview, y'all. This ain't no new interview. I'm thinking it looks like it's in the early 2000s or something like that. So it's 2023. You can only imagine how many prisons there is now in 2023. I can only imagine.
That didn't flip it over. You know what I'm saying? If flip it over is a word, because they're making a lot of money off of these things per inmate. You know what I'm saying? So getting with the same thing of the music, it all went hand in hand, and we just partying at the same time.
So us as the artists is the tool they use.
Yeah.
The music is the bait.
Yep.
And the young consumers are the prey. It's a cold game.
Cold game, bro.
Cold game. Then I feel sad.
Facts. Said the young consumers is the prey. The music is the bait. And the artists, they just the puppets.
Sad because everything we seem to try to create, we always seem to give it away. We're always being tricked and deceived into believing that they have our best interests at hand when clearly they never have and they never will. They never will have our best interests at hand. It's blow after blow after blow after blow. Nick.
So yeah, y'all. It's a cold game out here. But it's well strategic. It's well strategized the way that they did it. And it's working until this day. They're still using the same methods. Let's take a look. I want to show y'all a few things real quick before I move on to the next part. Take a look how many prisons are in the United States. So you heard them say it was like 17,000 prisons. Hold up, let me see. How many private prisons are there in 2023? Let's take a look. Uh, so as of today, how many prisons are privately owned in the United States in 2023? Let's take a look. Okay, Lord, could y'all just give me the answer? So 8% of the prisons are public and the other percentage is private. Okay, I'll find it later. They not coming up exactly with what I'm looking for. I'm trying to see like exactly how many prisons are there in America as a whole, and they're giving me all type of other answers and things like that. So we'll get back to that later. But yeah, I can imagine. I'm pretty sure it's a lot more than what it was in that video because that's a old that's an old video. So I can only imagine, y'all. But yeah, music. The thing about music is music can completely change your mood. Music can affect the subconscious. So if when so when it comes to certain things, right? Like we know when we consciously have something like let me put a way to explain this, right? Okay. Say we're watching something, right? Or we're listening to something. It's parts to where we can consciously hear what's going on. But there's also subliminals and subconscious things that can affect us as well. So let's take a look at this. How negative music can affect the human mind. There are studies that show, however, that music can impact our mood long term, increasing depression or anxiety. Certain songs, certain lyrics, certain genres of music are more likely to intensify depression or anxiety, sometimes as much or more as outside stressors. Listening to downhearted music enhances their opponents to get stuck in negative thinking patterns. It's like a never ending cycle. Listening to sad music feeds them with negative thoughts and feelings, which makes them feel even worse. and they come back to the same type of music to try to cope with these feelings. So that's just sad music. That's not talking about gangster music. So what do you think will happen if you talking about um murdering, killing? If you listen to music like that or doing drugs, it's going to subconsciously send messages to your brain to do that. If that's what you constantly listening to all the time, if you constantly listening to drill rappers talking about murdering and killing and robbing and stealing, eventually that's what you gonna want to do, because it's sending messages to you subconsciously. Music can hypnotize you. Why do you think we got so many babies out of wedlock? We're so sexually promiscuous and things like that. Talking about, like, I'm not saying everybody, but just like just next generation as a whole. Why do you think it's like that? Because the music, you had the R&B and hip hop promoting sex, 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 sex. A lot of this music is the same three messages: violence, committing criminal behaviors, doing drugs, or sex. Those are some of the same messages that's repeated over and over again in a lot of this music, a lot of rap music. And the stuff that is positive, that makes you want to do positive things, is not promoted. They don't put it out there like that. They hide it. They push it under the rug. I say about the only two positive artists that get shared like that, that is mainstream, is Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole. You don't have too many other positive hip hop artists that's booming like that. Cause it's oversaturated with this drill, this murder, this kill. And it's to the point to where people are tired of it because we see what it's doing. Drill is similar to the crack era in a way. And we're just not talking about like just the music as a whole, but we're just talking about the whole era, right? So if you think about it, the crack era, with the crack era, you had with the crack era, you had drugs flooding our communities, but you also had black people in communities with very little opportunities. So you know what they did? And the CIA conducted all this to fund a war in Nicaragua. I think that's what it was. It was either the Vietnam War or Nicaragua. I don't remember which one it was. But that's what the snowfall is all about. So you had people with no opportunity, with little opportunities, desolate communities with very little resources, and then you put drugs in there as a way that they can make money. And then after that, you put great crates of guns in their neighborhoods. And then you sit there and watch them murder each other over turf, over drugs, over money. You just sit there and watch it. And then the next step after that, mass incarceration. And while this is going on, you put out music to continue to influence these people to do this and follow along the same footsteps. Well, guess what? 2012, early 2010s. And don't get me wrong, you had the 1017 brick scribes and all that. I'm not gonna say it's all Chief Keef, but the drill rap, it made a complete turn because with the drill rap, you ain't never like you ain't really see nobody on the videos just waving guns like that. You got 30, 40 dudes in the videos just all waving guns in front of the camera. They made that a trend. The drill rap, Chicago drill rap made that a trend. And then ever since 2012, that started to become the norm. And it moved all across the country. And even when the Chicago drill rap started to die down, well, guess what? It moved to the South. And in the South, they got a different sound. I wouldn't call it quite drill. But as far as like the waving guns in the video, you got your NBA young boys and things like that. They picked up that. I wouldn't say they didn't have the same sound, but as far as like the whole marketing and the waving guns and videos and things like that, they started to do it down south. And a lot and also this drill rap it promoted gang culture in the way. And then you had the people in the south, they claiming Bloods and Crips down there. New York drill rappers claiming Bloods and Crips, right? Let's take a look at this, right? We show this video of this NYPD bus. Her name was Sleepy Hollow. Chef G. That's what their names were. Oh, hold up. We share it for y'all. My bad. My bad.
A prominent drill rapper and more than 30 other alleged gang members have been charged after a major takedown in Brooklyn.
That's right. Fox 5 was the only news team on scene as the NYPD closed in for the arrest. Here's Lisa Evers with the exclusive look inside the case.
Two popular drill artists, Chef G and Sleepy Hallow, along with 30 other men and women, are charged in a sweeping gang murder conspiracy case. The Brooklyn DA says they allegedly used money from their music careers for guns and to offer bounties on the heads of rival gang members. We had an exclusive look inside the NYPD investigation that helped build the case.
So don't this sound familiar? Similar to the YSL case? Putting money on people's head. And a lot of these other gang bus, so-called gang bus. Do this not sound familiar? This was the same things they was doing back in the 80s, doing big sweeps, big drug sweeps of drug dealers and gang members. Well, guess what? They're doing the same thing in 2023.
22 teams made up of the NYPD's Gun Violence Suppression Division and the Warrant Squad were briefed about the case, which stretches back 4 years. Over the coming hours, they took alleged 8 trade gang members into custody. Some were already behind bars, like Michael Williams, better known as drill rapper Chef G, who previously pleaded guilty to gun possession. He was booked on new charges. Police say he controlled the streets even though he was locked down.
Let's talk about Chef. If Chef said something, it happened. A simple text. We got to get a big one. That simple text created a war.
See? Like I said, it's a lot easier than it was back then because we got cell phones, we got social media, and we got the music itself. They don't got to work as hard as they did back then.
The detectives and officers from the NYPD Gun Violence Suppression Division, along with the Warrants Division, have all gotten their assignments, over 200 of them. They'll be fanning out to go and take down these suspects who have been pre-indicted on very serious allegations. The teams took the suspects not already incarcerated into custody without a single shot being fired. Brooklyn District Attorney Eric Gonzalez says the gang members used more than 30 guns to threaten or eliminate their rivals, proudly posting and boasting on social media phone videos.
See what I tell y'all, see? Post them on social media. Showing the guns. So they know y'all got them. They can probably see some of them, some of the serial numbers on them. They see y'all with them. They see what type of guns they are. Y'all be snitching on y'allself doing this.
This surveillance video, where they pop out with guns from a sunroof and window, shows one of the street shootings included in the case. The DA says charges include murder, attempted murder, weapons possession, and other crimes.
On camera. It's surveillance everywhere now. So they get everything on camera. And it's going to be many more of these indictments like this with a lot of these rappers. From local to big name rappers, y'all. I'm telling y'all, it's going to be a lot more.
In total, Gonzalez says there was 1 murder, 4 attempted murders, and 12 non-fatal shootings.
What we allege and what we learned during the course of this investigation is that Chef G used a lot of the money that he earned to help facilitate further gang activity. He encouraged gang members to participate in violent crimes.
So my thing is, if you making money for the music, man, you should want to get up out the streets. You should want to leave the streets alone. You should want to go completely legit at this point. But what y'all like to do is y'all like to continue to dabble in the streets when you need to completely just remove yourself. Y'all tripping, y'all going backwards, man. Y'all got to leave that alone. And the thing is, with this, when you rap about that type of stuff, it brings that type of energy as well. When you talk about gangster rap, murdering people, doing these criminal activities, it's gonna bring that type of energy, especially if you already have this friction in the streets. So it's gonna just amplify, to be honest. So in a certain way, I can see why when they do this, it's hard to leave. If you want to go become a rapper, the best way to do it is not to be no gangster rapper. I'll say that. Yes, you'll blow up real fast, but it's definitely consequences to it because a lot of these rappers are ended up murdered or ended up locked up.
The sheer violence in this case would stick out to me. The total disregard for civilians.
The magnitude of it. It stretches through a good portion of Brooklyn South. It's in the 40s. It's in Kings Highway, and it's all the way down to East 18th and Keaton. And it just really shows the command the A-Tray Crips and their elite alliances had over the Brooklyn South.
So this is the A-Tray Crips. So they gon' tie you to a gang like they did YSL. They said YSL was a record label, but hey, someone came out and said, Gunna came out and basically said, nah, it's a gang. He took the plea deal and said it's a gang. So, you know, if they can get you in with a group of other people, they can consider you a gang, and here comes the Rico, and they can give you a lot of time for this.
Area. At the 77th precinct in Crown Heights, the suspects were brought in to be booked.
There's just many facets of the investigation that cover a wide range that have to be vetted.
After being arrested on the new charges, Chef G and two other suspects were taken to central booking. The celebrity status of the drill rappers increased their clout and influence on the streets. The NYPD says it is not targeting drill rappers. What they're going after are people responsible for gun violence.
Everybody looks up to these guys, so you know it's a shame that they're using this platform, you know, the music platform, to actually, you know, carry out, you know, a negative message.
Yep, and that's what they're doing. And these are local drill rappers. You know, I never knew who these drill rappers were. You know, probably people in other states do know them, but I never heard of them like that. But you know, they're recontinue the same cycle, basically being used as puppets to push this type of message. Not only that, they're not only pushing the message. The rappers these days, they're actually carrying out those acts as well. So they're not just rapping about it, they're actually doing it. They're actually still in the streets while rapping. So that's why it's somewhat different from the 90s. Cause yeah, you had some of the rappers in the streets then, but like it's just like a lot of these rappers are really living that life. So not only are they influencing other people to go to prison, but they're going to prison themselves as well. They're crashing out as well. or ending up dead as well. So I mean, it, to me, it's worse than it is then, because back then you didn't have that many rappers getting killed like today, and then you didn't have these major RICO cases of rappers like today. So it's worse now, and their plan is still
When I
working
say
to
negative
this day.
message, I'm not talking about the music, it's what they're actually doing.
District Attorney Eric Gonzalez says his office, along with the NYPD, will continue to target the most violent individuals responsible for the gun violence that has terrorized so many neighborhoods. If convicted, those arrested in this case are looking at the possibility of decades behind bars. I'm Lisa
Decades.
Evers, Fox 5 News.
Shaking my head.
This week.
So I'm gonna end this here. I'm gonna have to just do a part 2 to it, because I don't have that much time. I got some other things I need to get taken care of. But yeah, we're gonna have to make a part 2 to this video, to where we can really break down how this compares to the war on drugs. So this is the first part of it. I'll holler at y'all later. I'm gonna get up off of here. Before I leave, as you can see, it's just a vicious cycle. And the thing is, you have a lot of independent artists, a lot of these local rappers that's doing this. So the record labels may not be making that much money from artists like they did back then, but guess what? They're still filling these prisons up. I can tell you that. They're still filling these prisons up more than ever. So they're making money off of these prisons still. But yeah, y'all have a great night. Y'all be safe. I'm about to get up off of here. And I'll post the part 2 soon. So y'all stay tuned. Peace.